Good morning. And welcome to Neighborhood Unitarian Universalist Church in Pasadena. Welcome to all members, friends, and guests. My name is May Colcord, and I am a member of your Board of Trustees. Neighborhood Church creates and grows an inclusive community of faith connected by love, spirit, and service. We acknowledge our presence on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples, the traditional caretakers of the lands and waters of this campus. With respect for the rights and wisdom of Indigenous people, we acknowledge our harmful colonial histories and commit to decolonizing our own practices, to learning new ways of being in community and with each other, in good relationship with the Indigenous people of this land and with the land itself. Today's service is led by Senior Minister Reverend Dr. Omega Burkhart, with music by Music Director Dr. Zaneta Robles, Associate Music Director Wells Lang, and Tenor Section Leader Michael Fausto. Please take a moment to silence your devices as we begin our service. Families with young children are always welcome in the sanctuary, and there's additional seating in the entry foyer or narthex. I have a couple of brief announcements today. First, we need you to teach children and youth spiritual exploration. We're most in need of teachers for grades 2 through 5 and rites of passage, sometimes called ROP. These are both really fun and interesting classes to teach, and teaching really isn't that big of a commitment. Most teachers usually only need to teach about twice a month. Please sign up on the patio following service. And we look forward to coming together as an entire community on Sunday, September 8th for Ingathering, the traditional UU startup of the church year. Following the service that day, we encourage members and friends to bring a picnic lunch to enjoy on the lawn, or this year there will be a taco truck available. Taco plates will be available for purchase, meat and vegetarian options, with a recommended $5 donation to cover costs. We look forward to being together with you all. More extensive announcements, as well as our order of service this morning, are available as a link in the Sunday email. Our order of service is also visible online by scanning the QR code on the back of your hymnal with your phone. Again, welcome to Neighborhood Church, whoever you are and wherever you are in your spiritual journey. Welcome to this inclusive faith community connected by love, spirit, and service.
What makes a poem? Being etymologically interested, writes Padraig O'Tuma, being etymologically interested, I remind myself that the Greek source of our English word poem means something like a made thing. So what makes a poem? What makes a making? Already, for me, I'm thinking beyond the question of a particular poem and wondering what it means to make something. Making is a way of living, from propagating the species to making shelter or safety or treaty or peace or galleries or museums or schools or cake. Today we celebrate Poetry Sunday, our second annual Poetry Sunday. All of the poems for today can be found in the order of service. I started to print them and realized I had over 5 pages, and to conserve some trees, they're online. So in case you don't know how to access our order of service, we're going to do it together. This will be one of the few times I invite you to take out your phone during service. You can do this every Sunday, but for today, the poems, if you'd like to read along, can be found by pointing your phone camera. You don't need a specific app generally. Point your phone camera at the QR code on the back of your hymnal. Both the gray hymnals and the teal hymnals have this. And when you point your phone camera like you're going to take a picture, don't click picture, just hover. And you might get a little box that pops up that says something like open in Chrome or open the PDF. And once you do that, you'll go to a page that says click the orange bar to access the order of service. How we doing? So far, so good? When you click the orange bar, you're going to go to our order of service. It has the listing of everything we're going to do together today. And if you scroll and scroll a little bit more, the poems for today's service are listed there in order, and you can read along. Which, of course, I've just invited you all to look this way. During the service, that's fine. We're here together and glad that we are. So let us gather this morning in celebration of the making of this moment, through song, through words, through our togetherness. We light this chalice this morning. We make this flame together as a symbol of our shared making. We are gathered in this space together, many of us. Some of us are gathering online. We welcome you and we are glad that you are with us. Some of our community are also at Camp de Benneville this morning, and if the Wi-Fi is holding up and they're watching, we're glad you're with us from the land of the tall pines as well. As we close out our summer and we are beginning preparations to enter a new church year together, during our services, I will invite you to center yourselves at our arrival. The intention of our gathering is held in this space. It is heavy and sparkling. It is a shimmer. It is a place of nourishment. So I invite you to center yourself here today. Find yourself comfortable in your seat. Perhaps your feet are resting on the floor. You feel your spine reach up, straight, extending heavenward. Find your breath centered in your core. Close your eyes for a moment if that is comfortable for you. Your breath deep. In this space, you are centered, allowing you to leave what you need to leave for a few moments together, to be here fully in this community at this time. Spirit of life, open my heart. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love that you give. May it be so.
Good morning. Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing our gathering hymn, Open My Heart, number 1013.
Each Sunday, our congregation dedicates 100% of its contributions to 501c3 organizations or neighborhood church-based social justice activities that are making a difference in our community and the world. Each selected guest organization aligns with our community's mission and values and is nominated by church members who often are longtime volunteers and supporters of these change-making organizations. You can donate in one of two ways. You can use your cell phone to donate by texting the number on the screen. Or if you'd prefer to donate in person, put your donation in one of the designated boxes during the music or after the service. There is a donation box behind the back center row and in the narthex entry on the table. Please extend help to those in your neighborhood who may need assistance reaching the donation box. If you wish to make a payment towards your pledge or contribute to church operations, make a note in the subject line or use an envelope available at the donation boxes. This week, our gifts will support Arroyos and Foothills Conservancy, or AFC. Here to tell us more is my dad, Frank Colcord.
That's my daughter. Good morning, y'all. My name is Frank Colcord, and as a longtime volunteer of our Share the Plate recipient, today it's my pleasure to get to introduce you or reintroduce you to the Arroyos and Foothills Conservancy. The Conservancy, or AFC, as May mentioned, actually has deep roots in neighborhood church, as you may know. Past president and longtime member Nancy Steele was a co-founder of AFC. Nancy and a few of her neighbors formed the organization 25 years ago to formalize their efforts at protecting and preserving critical open space in the hillsides above their homes in Pasadena. From that initial completely volunteer effort, AFC has grown to become a well-known and highly regarded conservation organization with a full-time staff of experts in the field and owning 100 acres of open space on 16 different properties in our local mountains, the San Gabriels, the San Rafael Hills, and the Verdugo Mountains. The central focus of AFC's efforts when purchasing and preserving property is to the development of wildlife corridors between these three disjointed mountain landscapes. As AFC's executive director, John Howell, puts it, quote, "The most effective way of assuring healthy wildlife populations is to strategically remove barriers, engineer crossings, calm traffic, acquire land, and restore habitat with native plants. We create stepping stones for wildlife to move safely through urban areas to hunt, forage, mate, and establish their own territories," end quote. In addition to preserving and restoring native habitats and creating wildlife corridors, AFC also partners with Occidental College to conduct hyperlocal research on wildlife movement with a network of over 80 wildlife camera traps in our hills. They also advocate for policy and regulatory protections for wildlife and open space. And thirdly, they develop and offer educational opportunities on different aspects of conservation and natural history in our area. Their educational programming includes a terrifically successful K through 12 program that offers free field trips and docent-led hikes to the Rosemont Preserve in La Crescenta. AFC has hosted more than 2,000 students each of the last 2 years from schools across the LA area. The program even includes free transportation to and from the preserve, and last year more than 60% of the students that participated were from underserved communities. As a frequent volunteer docent myself, I can't tell you how cool it is to see how thrilled and inspired these students are, not only about just getting out of the classroom and into the outdoors, but also walking in the footprints of mountain lions, seeing deers, and getting the chance to be citizen scientists and pick apart bear and deer scat and coyote scat to see what they had for dinner the night before. Anyway, all of this is a way to say that AFC is an amazing organization that, like most nonprofits, really could use our financial support to further their work in our community. And I have to say first, I don't know if you noticed, but Robin's flowers this morning, this is exactly what the preserves look like right now. All of this buckwheat and stuff is gorgeous. But anyway, since this is Poetry Sunday, I'll close with this little ditty. Lions and black bears and fox, oh my, looking for food and mates they try, traversing our urbanized landscapes, you see, made easier by our friends at AFC. Thank you for your generosity. I'll be on the patio afterwards. If you have some questions, I can tell you about how you can get involved. And during the offertory anthem, please enjoy some slides of the wildlife and the preserves. Thanks.
Just one more quick note, there's also a donation box up front. Thank you for giving generously.
Asturiana by Manuel de Falla. The translation from the Spanish is, to see if it would console me, tie me up to a green pine, to see if it would console me. Upon seeing me cry, it cried. The pine tree, because it was green, upon seeing me cry, it cried. This is Spanish poetry set by Manuel de Falla.
So what makes a poem, if the poem is the making? What makes a poem, asks Padre Gotuma. In a way, this is a limited answer, he suggests. If you're not familiar with Padre Gotuma, he's a theologian and poet himself. He says, in a way, this is a limited answer. It is the poem's relationship with absence. A poem is typically a short thing, unless you're Jane Austen's Mr. Collins. I'm sure he would have written a very long poem. All writing, prose, poetry, analysis must know when to stop. When description has done its work and the imagination takes over. A poem's relationship to the blank space on the page is one of the things I look for, he says. If the poem is being too complete, then I feel controlled, not guided. Now, my first guide to poetry was a professor in a very early graduate level class, Dr. Michael Duderoff. I have invited him to watch today, so perhaps he is watching virtually with us this morning. Now, despite the fact that I was entering a master's program for literature in Spanish, I admit now I was terrified of poetry. Up until that point, I could wrestle with novels and language and history and culture, but poetry, I often felt like I was missing a key to unlock it, or that everybody else knew something that I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know if it was supposed to be a certain way. Up until that moment with Professor Duderoff, I assumed I needed to understand complex rhyming schemes and meter and historical resonances. I would need a diagram, perhaps, or two, or a map, or a calculator to really understand poetry, to get the most out of it. And then, early that fall, I was in a class with Professor Duderoff for Latin American literature and poetry, and he read a poem out loud. The poem entitled Mi Prima Águeda, written by Ramón López Velarde, a Mexican poet. And during that reading, two things struck me that forever changed my relationship to language and to art. The first was I watched as my professor's countenance changed. His physical appearance shifted as he read that poem. The gleam in his eye told of his deep enjoyment. It was infectious. It was contagious. It captivated the whole class. I was not alone in that moment. And in that moment, I saw for the first time the way the images in my own imagination played a part. The colors and the depth that were sparked. I could imagine the ebony of the wood-paneled rooms of the house that poem described. I could feel that there was a juxtaposition of the ripe fruit that was on the table with the black clothing of the funeral, of mourning, of that ceremony. I felt a nostalgia for youth and innocence, and how those first awakenings of adolescence on the part of the poet were intertwined with the confusion of family tradition found in the clinking of the fine silverware, maybe only brought out for special important occasions, and how those sounded like bells when he was listening to his youthfully glowing cousin, Águeda, as she sat quietly knitting, surrounded by the dark wood that I imagined. I also imagined stern and watchful aunties. They're not actually in the poem, but it felt right. The poem, as Padre Gotuma suggests, is about as much about what was in the poem as the absences and the silences. The reading of the poem by my professor was about savoring those sounds, the language and the silence, that nourishment of depth, of savoring. The power of intention and absence of language and musicality, it inspires image and metaphor, nostalgia and playfulness, and all of these are an inspiration to me in my daily life. All of these make me want to savor the world, to savor my time on this world. And I think you'll hear this theme. We have a few folks who are going to read some poetry with us today, and I think you'll hear that theme in the offerings that they're bringing also today, to savor the world, to slow down, to breathe in, to appreciate where we are right now, to touch and smell and taste the fruit in the basket, the dried flowers, to remember tinkling of silverware as it comes from the other room, from a family gathering from long ago, to honor this nostalgia that we have for youth and innocence, and maybe even a future nostalgia that we might feel at some point. It will flow through us in a few decades when we see a color similar to these on the burnt hillsides, or we smell the waft from the oil of a flame in some future sanctuary. So first, I offer you a reading of Mi Prima Águeda in Spanish, Ramón López Velarde, first in Spanish, then in English. Mi madrina invitaba a mi prima Águeda a que pasara el día con nosotros, y mi prima llegaba con un contradictorio prestigio de almidón y de temible luto ceremonioso. Águeda aparecía resonante de almidón, y sus ojos verdes y sus mejillas rubicundas me protegían contra el pavoroso luto. Yo era rapaz y conocía la O por lo redondo, y Águeda, que tejía mansa y perseverante en el sonoro corredor, me causaba calosfríos ignotos. Creo que hasta la debo la costumbre heroicamente insana de hablar solo. A la hora de comer en la penumbra quieta del refectorio, me iba embelesando un quebradizo sonar intermitente de vajilla y el timbre caricioso de la voz de mi prima. Águeda era luto, pupilas verdes y mejillas rubicundas, un cesto policromo de manzanas y uvas en el ébano de un armario añoso. My godmother invited my cousin Águeda to spend the day with us. And my cousin arrived with a contradictory, prestigious rustle of starched cotton and funeral mourning. Águeda appeared resonant, starched cotton, her eyes green, and her cheeks were full and rosy. They protected me against that dreadful period of mourning. I was a young lad, and I knew the O of my letters by its round shape. And Águeda, who knitted calm and persevering in that echoing hallway, caused in me unknowable shivers. I think I even owe her the habit of awkwardly speaking to myself when I'm alone. At lunchtime, in the shadowy silence of the dining room, I was enchanted by the bright, vibrating tinkle of glassware and the lilting timbre of my cousin's voice. Agatha was, morning, green pupils and cheeks ruddy, a polychrome basket of apples and grapes on an old ebony armoire.
I'll be reading Miracle Fair by Wisława Szymborska. Commonplace miracle that so many commonplace miracles take place. The usual miracle, invisible dogs barking in the dead of night. One of many miracles, a small and airy cloud is able to upstage the massive moon. Several miracles in one. An alder is reflected in the water and is reversed from left to right and grows from crown to root and never hits bottom, though the water isn't deep. A run-of-the-mill miracle. Winds, mild to moderate, turn gusty in storms. A miracle in the first place. Cows will be cows. Next, but not least, just this cherry orchard from just this cherry pit. A miracle minus top hat and tails, fluttering white doves. A miracle, what else could you call it? The sun rose today at 3:14 a.m. and will set tonight at 8:01. A miracle that's lost on us. The hand has actually fewer than 6 fingers, and it's still got more than 4. A miracle, just take a look around. The inescapable earth. An extra miracle, extra and ordinary. The unthinkable can be thought.
This is Rafe Vaughan Williams' setting of George Herbert's poem, The Call. Come my way, my truth, my life, such a way as gives us breath, such a truth as ends all strife, such a life as killeth death. Come my light, my feast, my strength, such a light as shows a feast, such a feast as mends in length, such a strength as makes his guest. Come my joy, my love, my heart, such a joy There's joys in love.
That was amazing. Good morning. Liesl Miller was 96 when she died in 2020. She was a German-born American poet, translator, academic teacher. Her family fled the Nazi regime, and she arrived in the U.S. in 1939 at the age of 15. She attended the University of Evansville. She worked as a literary critic and taught at the University of Chicago, Elmhurst College, and Goddard College. She began writing poetry in 1950 and published her first collection in 1965 after years of self-study. She received awards including the National Book Award in 1981 and the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry in 1997. I will evoke the voice of Liesl Muller. This is Alive Together. Speaking of marvels, I am alive together with you. When I might have been alive with anyone under the sun. When I might have been Abelard's woman, or the whore of a Renaissance pope, or a peasant wife with not enough food, not enough love, with my children dead of the plague. I might have slept in an alcove next to the man with a golden nose who poked it into the business of stars, or sewn a starry flag for a general with wooden teeth. I might have been the exemplary Pocahontas, or a woman without a name, weeping in master's bed for my husband exchanged for a mule, my daughter lost in a drunken bet. I might have been stretched on a totem pole to appease a vindictive God, or left a useless girl child to die on a cliff. I like to think I might have been Mary Shelley, in love with a wrong-headed angel, or Mary's friend. I might have been you. This poem is endless. The odds against us are endless. Our chances of being alive together, statistically non-existent. Still, we have made it. Alive in a time when rationalists in square hats and hatless Jehovah's Witnesses agree it is almost over. Alive with our lively children who, but for endless ifs, might have missed out on being alive together, with marvels and follies and longings and lies and wishes and error and humor and mercy and journeys and voices and faces and colors and summers and mornings and knowledge and tears and chance.
let that hang in the space for a moment. As we can feel, poetry has the power with precise and evocative language. It can inspire us to imagination unlike anything else. The poet's tool is precision. Your work as a listener, breather, singer, reader, lover of poetry, your work is the rest. Poetry for the sake of poetry certainly exists, yes, of course, but poetry that inspires us into a new appreciation for our being, of being alive together in this time and place. Poetry that inspires us into a way of being, that takes a relationship. That takes a relationship of poet, of words, and of you. You, children of this time, children of this world. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, go the words written by Emma Lazarus in the New Colossus. Not like the brazen giant of fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities flame. Keep ancient lands, keep your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. With silent lips, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Those words, of course, on a plaque at the foot of the Statue of Liberty. This week in our nation, and indeed the world, we have witnessed the latest chapter in an ever-unfolding saga of what it means to be patriotic, and I use that word very carefully, of the nuance between community and pride and aspirational dreaming, and the dangers of narcissistic and intentionally hateful nationalism, a nationalism that is rooted in vanity and a perversion of religion. While this unfolding saga, of course, is not new, I think we are more aware than ever of the real-life harm, the real-life generational harm that befalls us when we confuse aspiration with hateful nationalism, a nationalism carved by few and imposed on the many. I offer you this poem that was given to us this week by Amanda Gorman, 26-year-old poet and activist. She charged us all to remember and to be worthy of a dream that is rooted in love, an American dream that unites us rather than divides. So I read to you Amanda Gorman's poem, The Sacred Scene. We gather at this hallowed place because we believe in the American dream. We face a race that tests if this country we cherish shall perish from the earth, and if our earth shall perish from this country. It falls to us to ensure that we do not fall for a people that cannot stand together, cannot stand at all. We are only one family, regardless of religion, class, or color. For what defines a patriot is not just our love of liberty, but our love for one another. This is loud in our country's call because while we all love freedom, it is love that frees all. Empathy emancipates, making us greater than hate or vanity. That is the American promise, powerful and pure. Divided we cannot endure, but united we can endeavor to humanize our democracy and endear democracy to humanity. And make no mistake, cohering is the hardest task ever wrote. But tomorrow is not written by our odds of hardship, but by the audacity of our hope, by the vitality of our vote. Only now, approaching this rare era, are we aware that perhaps the American dream is no dream at all, but instead a dare to dream together. Like a million roots tethered, branching up humbly, making one tree. This is our country, from many, one, from battles, one, our freedoms sung, our kingdom come has just begun. We redeem this sacred scene, ready for our journey from it. Together, we must birth this early republic and achieve an unearthly summit. Let us not just believe in the American dream, let us be worthy of it.
Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing our closing hymn, Go Lift It Up, number 1057.
And for our benediction, The Facts of Life by Padre Gotuma. Listen, that you were born and you will die, that you will sometimes love enough and sometimes not, that you will lie if only to yourself, that you will get tired, that you will learn most from situations you did not choose, that there will be some things that move you more than you can say, that you will live, that you must be loved, that you will avoid questions most urgently in need of your attention, that you began as the fusion of a sperm and an egg of two people who once were strangers and may well still be. That life isn't fair, that sometimes life is good and sometimes even better than good, that life is often not too good, that life is real, and if you can survive it well, with love and art and meaning, given where meaning's scarce, that you will learn to live with regret, that you will learn to live with respect, that structures that constrict you may not be permanently constricting, that you will probably be okay, that you must accept change before you die, but you will die anyway, so you might as well live. And you might as well love. You might as well love. You might as well love.